We built the whole product in like a weekend, and then we launched on Monday, and that blew up like crazy. So first month we made about 70 grand.
I had this experience. We were advertising for Black women in the US, like me as I think I was 19-year-old male, that's like a completely different audience, and you have to, recognize their lingo.
When you are motivated, you have kind of like zero discipline at the time and biggest sort of like level of motivation. And gradually with time, you get less and less motivation, but you get more and more discipline. And as you get with time, you sort of rely mostly on the discipline because that has given you the positive feedback in the past. And I think that's beautiful. Chris, Alex, pleasure to meet you, see you on this call. Thanks for making the time for jumping on this. Really happy to be here and to get a chance to speak with you. So
Nice to see you.
Tell us a little bit about like who you are.
Cool.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice
Tell us
to
a little
see you
bit
again.
about who you are, what you've been up to, and how you happened on this call.
Cool. So I'm Aleksandras in Lithuanian. I've been working in e-commerce for 4 years as a media buyer, as an e-commerce strategist, and currently working with two e-commerce brands, which is Centra and Placeto, and responsible to scale their new customer acquisition. That's the summary.
Yeah, cool. And my name's Chris.
Chris.
My background is in full service e-commerce marketing. So I started an e-com agency when I was probably 18, and that scaled to a 7-figure e-com agency. Alex was a part of it one time, and I sold my part of the agency to then build another agency, and then that was a digital product business, and then I built a couple of e-com businesses that are in the digital product space. So that's my background right now.
Awesome. And have you two always been working together on those?
No, me and Alex, we actually, so Alex was working at a competitor agency at one point, and we were just sort of, it was summertime, and we were both sort of at the seaside and partying, just doing a lot of fun stuff. And then at the end of the summer,
That's
Alex
true.
decided to join our agency, just because it was, I think, a little bit more fun for him at the time. So that's when we
Sure.
started off working together. And then Alex was a strategist at our agency, and he used to work with clients, and that's how we used to roll. And then once I left the agency, some few months later, I had a couple of e-com brands that I wanted Alex's some help. He left the agency, so it was sort of like a clean transition at that point.
That's
fair
really cool.
enough.
One of the things I mentioned actually to Alex, and I'm so surprised by the two of you. Actually, you are 22, right? 23.
I'm 21. He's
guessing.
22. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you guys been already at 21, 22. You've been in multiple businesses. Probably safe to say it's probably in the hundreds at this point. Some like Chris, you've run a few like your own. Alex, you've been like we've actually worked on a few of them. So, what's the story of you getting so early into this and actually getting through? Like it's really exciting. Like, not many people are in their 16, 17s are doing e-com.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably partying or even sleeping.
I think I'm going to start from my part because I think we are going to have similar stories because we actually came from the same school. I had a classmate, his name was Tiras. He was actually a co-founder with Chris from the very first like marketing agency from our community when they were 16. I think it was like the 10th grade. And from my side, it was simple. Like I saw what they were doing. I always wanted to, start working. I saw e-commerce as my only like job I would want to work, and it seemed like an easy way out. So I was just inspired by, what they were doing and just kind of joined in 1.5 years later or something. But Chris, I think, has a cooler story on this. Of how the garage agency came to be.
Yeah, it was, I think I was 15 years old at that time. I think I was 15 or 16, I don't remember exactly. And I fell sick for about 2 weeks. At that time, I was sort of making videos for a couple of clients and getting $100 there, $50 there. It was all in euro, by the way. And it wasn't really sustainable, and it wasn't really consistent. And I fell sick for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, I would wake up, watch Top Gear, and then go to sleep. And that was my 2 weeks. And then the 14th day, I realized that, oh fuck, what am I doing with my life? And I realized that nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's, I'm not gonna get a handout in life. And if I want to do cool shit, I already have all the time in the world. It's just that I'm not utilizing the time. So that's when I started to realize that if I read more books, I'm probably going to be a little bit more smarter in each area. And then New Year's Eve started, and I had a couple of ideas of starting a media company in Lithuania. And I talked with my friend Titas, and he was sort of in the same sort of mindset. And then we both sort of decided to kick this off, and then we started off and we kicked things off. We didn't know anything, so we just went and did cool shit. And then we rented a garage in Vilnius for 100 euros per month, and that was our office. And then we started to outreach clients. And the first e-com, sort of first step into e-com was in October of 2018. We met this guy who was running Facebook ads in Lithuania, and he was running them mostly for e-com brands and for digital products, actually, at the time even. So he showed us sort of the ads manager, and that you can make money from, Facebook ads. Like he showed us like 5x ROAS on like certain campaigns and everything like that. And at the time, Facebook ads was super cheap when compared right now, and not a lot of competition. So it was basically a money printer. And we're like, holy shit, let's get into ecom. And on January 1st, 2019, we decided that our agency is going to go mostly into ecom, and we're going to figure it out from there. And then we had a couple of good examples of big ecom agencies that were run by Lithuanians and Americans, which were making like $1 million per month for their clients, and they were sort of the good example that we're aiming for. And that's how it started.
Wow. Like, just to keep that in mind, like it's, so you were 15, 16. I think people in their mid-20s up to like mid-30s are still trying to figure out that life sort of like question. Whereas you guys were at school and just having a little bit of extra time. It's crazy. I wish I did it actually. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think for us, it was like pretty easy because we had a community, and I think it was more interesting to do than school, Like, for example, we would wake up at 5 a.m., like the three of us. I remember we were working at the same office, and we would just go to the office like at 6, meet up together, and we would like work on campaigns and stuff. Like, we were like all friends. Then at 8:30, we would go to school. And you go to school, it's not as interesting, like you're waiting till it ends and you want to go back to the office. And then you're all of you like, at 2, 3 p.m., go back to the office and just sit there till 8, 9. It's not always work, but you just like hang out, So I felt like at that point, it was just pretty easy because it was kind of a social thing as well, It was just fun to do. And I think we got really lucky on the community part.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we got really lucky on being with the right people and just finding the right people, and then having a way, because the internet has opened up, so we could, watch different courses on, ad buying, email marketing. There were a lot of different courses, YouTube videos that we could watch, a lot of good examples as well. And then people that would sort of, support that. If we were to go alone, I don't think we would be here. So
do you remember any of those courses that you were watching that, like, would you say that are still relevant maybe today, or are you still kind of like educating yourself with some courses?
I would say from Facebook ads, Depeche Mondalia as a very OG course. I haven't watched it in a long time. I don't know how much of it is up to date, but I think it gives you a pretty good overview of like just looking at Facebook ads, not just as, an algorithm, but as a like funnel, like looking at it as creatives and a website and an offer, not just gambling machine.
The ecom OG is Ezra Firestone, I would say.
True.
He had some awesome courses.
Yeah.
There was also like Copy Hackers, if you guys remember. Those were pretty good. Yes. And then Russell Brunson, like all his material on like the perfect webinar, ClickFunnels, funnel hacking. That was awesome. That was a good one.
I haven't watched that one.
Yeah.
I have it downloaded on my Audible, but I haven't watched it still.
Yeah, it's for info products, I would say, though. He's good, really good. Yeah. But it's,
And are you still like using that, like in terms of the ClickFunnel approach? I was going to say.
I think that's more for Chris. I don't know. I wouldn't say
Are
I'm
you
that.
using the Russell Brunson sort of like click funnel approach of, like long form copy, doing almost like the full funnel on like one page? Like, is that something that would you say like works for you to this day?
What I would say is I think everything that you learn can be applied to different formats. So I feel like every single format that we have, the landing page, the email, the ad, all the principles still remain the same across different formats. And it's just a matter of, for example, I think the landing page in a way, should work like an ad. There's the hook, there's the problem, there could be sort of a story-based format. You still have to maintain attention. The viewer still goes on an emotional journey. So it's sort of, the principles still sort of remain the same. So even the stuff that I learned from Russell Brunson's The Perfect Webinar, course, you can still apply that in ads, you can apply that in landing pages and in the copy that you write. Like all the principles can still remain the same. Like for example, in Russell Brunson's Perfect Webinar, he talks about the one big idea instead of having core, like 3 or 5 or 10 different ideas. Like you want to have one strong, purpose of why this product or why this, thing exists. And then there are the 3 secrets that make the big idea happen. That's the perfect webinar funnel. Then you have the hook, then you have sort of the middle part, and then there's the close. The close has like different sort of parts of like the stack. And you're also getting this, and you're also getting this, and you're also getting this, and then the drop down of the price. So all these different aspects that are used in the webinar funnels, you can still use the philosophy and the principles across different formats.
And would you say which one, if when you are testing, especially on the landing page, is kind of like making the biggest difference? If you were to come sit down and say, this is not working right now, what would you be your go-to strategy for testing on the landing page? Would you be working first on the hook, or would you be working towards like at the end of like the benefits?
I would say the big offer, the product, and the big idea. Just I think the biggest increases that we saw, like you can do the micro adjustments or micro tests. I'm not too big on those. I feel like there are CRO experts that could do a better job of analyzing data and doing all of that. For me, it's all about what's the offer, what's the big idea, and how are we communicating that offer? And is the offer strong enough? Is it strong enough compared to the market needs, and sort of where does it stand? Is it fresh? Is it new? Is it something that people should care about? Is it urgent? Is it like are the core fundamentals in place? So for me, it's that.
That's really cool. And what would be your process of capturing that idea? Like, would you research it in a certain way, ChatGPT it, or survey audience? How do you find that big idea?
Good question.
I could say I saw him building landing pages from the side, then I could say that his approach is more intuitional. Like he doesn't have a strict approach of, I do a landing page like this, I first fold is a template that I do like this. He just kind of like sits on his iPad, draws the frame, and tries to like build a journey of arguments, if that makes sense. I think it's a very he tries to create a journey, I've noticed, when he like draws the landing pages of like arguments.
I feel like we just need to feed our brain with as much data as possible, and then the creative process takes over. And because I feel like every single human sort of, we still eat shit and sleep, like all of us do the same things, and we have similar emotional triggers. So that means our body is a pretty good indicator of whether we're sort of going in the right direction or not, or wrong direction. There's this guy called Alan Soltnich, and he's in Nothing Held Back, and he told me, like, on one of his podcasts, I think he said that when you write copy, you have to check not with your mind but with your body, because your body knows what's up. So if you're writing copy from the body and trying to perceive like emotions from the body, and you're testing whether the copy hits inside of like different elements of your body, then the copy is good. So what I'm trying to do a lot of times is I'm trying to feed a lot of data that I'm getting. So being receptive to the environment, seeing what the market is up, like scrolling Instagram, scrolling, as much data as possible, and then just trying to intuitively figure out what the journey would be like, what those people that I'm trying to reach would care about, and then does it check with my body? Like, is it not only like a mental construct that works, but is it, deep enough where it's like, oh shit, this is, important. And then because there are different aspects of the sale, there's the emotional sale and then there's the logical sale. So you have to check with both. The emotional sale is usually the design, the structure, the big sort of concepts. The logical sale is sort of the argument. Whenever lawyers craft an argument, you have to have like a logical case for all of it. So all of these have to check out. Then there's the importance factor, the pain factor, the risk threshold, and everything. So all of these levers are sort of constantly going off in our brains. And then I feel like the sale isn't like 90% of the sale, 80% of the sale isn't, rational. It's purely emotional based. The rationale only justifies our emotions. It doesn't work the other way. So that's why the body sort of connection and the emotion on the landing pages and on the sales process, I think that's why it's so important. And it's oftentimes overlooked.
This is such a great, this is the first time I'm hearing this, and I'm going to be going over that. I think it's a podcast. I don't know if it's a book as well. First time I'm hearing this, like just lead with the body. I think intuitively, I've also followed that approach when I was sort of like writing or like structuring, but never really captured it that way. So it's really interesting. There's a few different copy frameworks like that are sort of like recurring a lot of the time that I think are, like we know that they're effective. We know that problem, action, solution, PAS framework is good, pastor or like closer ones. We know that the AIDA is kind of like as old as time. But I think I've read this somewhere that you have maybe 60-70% is market, which is basically what they're feeling. And then you have 20% copy, and then 20% like offer, 10% copy. So it's basically a lot of them is actually almost being able to recognize the emotion. And to recognize that emotion, you need to have the empathy, which means that you need to be aware of your own emotions as well, which is basically the empathy because you can feel it. So in a way, by a very long logic of like deduction, and like we can say that almost doing marketing starts from within, like within yourself, with understanding your own feelings so that you can capture them, and which I think is a very valuable insight that a lot of people overlook, because a lot of marketing has been how can we make a quick buck or like more money, and the really good marketing has been the one that is as old as time. Like all of us like know Nike, all of us know Coca-Cola, and you're related to like a certain feeling. So you relate Nike with sports, you relate Coca-Cola with sort of like friends and family. So when you tie your product or like brand to a certain emotion, you almost also tailor it for a long-term success.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true? Is that like also how you're approaching?
I agree. One thing I would consider is as well, I would think it's not just about how well you understand yourself. I think that's a big part of it, but it's also how well you can understand people that you're unfamiliar with, Because if you're advertising, for example, I had this experience. We were advertising for Black women in the US, like me as a 19-year-old male, that's like a completely different audience, and you have to, recognize their lingo, like why, their emotions, all of their like interactions. And it's a very different experience than, like thinking how you would feel about this, It's trying to be empathetic with others as well. I think that's a skill that you have to also learn.
Yeah. And I think actually the two of like you and me have a good example of working on a menopause brand, which is something that we'll never be able to experience. So that was a fun challenge. The first brand that we worked together a few, like 3-4 years ago now. And that was fun. The way I did it was because, sorry, I'm hearing my voice for a second. The way we did it then was that I literally went to ask all the sort of like women that are at that age in my life, because it's one thing to research it online, but it's another thing to actually sit down and pen and paper, ask your mom or like your grandmother, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's approach, but and into copy, put that transformation of whatever it is, because that's how we did a really good job back then. They almost hit the 8-figure, or I think they hit it.
I think they later hit it, but at first, we had a pretty good success. It was a challenge, definitely, but I think, we did well.
Okay, so let's transition now to kind of like your like the journey that we sort of like shared. I think in particular like the business, we've been working for a few months, but I want to, before we go like over our work, I want you to kind of like give a little bit more of context of like the current project that you're focusing on. Could you just give a little bit of insight? You don't have to reveal the, like the actual brand or like the industry, like, or you can, like the name, but you can share a little bit about sort of like how did it came to be, like creating actually the offer. I can see that we, like Chris mentioned, he had like the market sentiment, understanding and like tailoring like the big sort of like offer. But how did you decide like this is what I'm going to dedicate like my next year or like few years? And yeah, just like like the journey of your current kind of like business.
So for context, the pretext was that we had an email agency which had digital products in the front end. So that was sort of our first step into running our own digital products. And we had a little bit of experience running digital products. And that was the main core business at that time. So it was January of 2023, just about exactly 1 year ago. And that was the main business. And it started to take off little by little. And I think we were at like 20 or 30K per month mark. And the goal was to sort of scale it and have sales running on the back end and have everything running properly. And I was in Portugal at the time. And as I was coming back from Portugal, I was scrolling LinkedIn on in an apartment in Berlin. And I saw this guy put up a Notion doc which said that, hey, I've assembled 100+ prompts for ChatGPT. And, if you want it, you can use it. And just, type in DM in the comments and I'll send it to you. And I saw like 5,000 people comment DM and just like it was going crazy. And I realized that he didn't probably put up the whole prompt thing because he wasn't sending it to anyone because it's a lot of work to do basically. But I realized that the market sentiment was pretty high there. So I sent the idea to my friend. He was like, oh shit, let's do this. And then on Friday, I came back from Berlin. We sat down on Saturday. We built the landing page, which was sort of a little bit of what we used on the other digital product. And then we built the whole product in like a weekend. And then we launched on Monday and that blew up like crazy. That was sometimes you launch an e-com and it just fucking goes. So first month we made about 70 grand or something like that. It was just very clearly the market was there and we needed to scale it. So it's just, it wasn't all that planned. It wasn't, strategized. It was just following. And it was super easy to do because it was just, exciting. It was just growing day over day. So we needed new creatives. We needed to expand our list. Everyone started copying our landing page and everything. So then we built an even crazier offer, which then just completely took off and it just dominated. And then everyone started copying that as well. So we're sort of the first movers in that market, which was sort of cool being at the forefront of that market because I remember building the landing page and knowing that people would copy it. So I was like, fucking try me. And, you're just sitting and doing the landing page and then you launch it and it just like obliterates everyone else. It's just a pretty cool feeling. And then we asked ourselves what's next. And now the core product is ChatGPT bots, which are built on make.com. And they're sort of bot templates that anyone can use and use with make.com. That's the current Shopify business.
So basically, you were running, you started with a digital product. You did the agency. At the time, we were competitors, actually. I mean, we've always kind of like been with like the other agency, but I've also don't take it really as in a way, not really a competition because like the other guy who's like, I'm not mentioning any names, but I have a really good relationship with him and it's been more about like collaboration, sharing knowledge. So I think that is, just as a side note, really helpful for like some agencies to be actually partnering as opposed to directly competing because there's enough business for everyone. Like there's 1 million plus like Shopify stores, out of which like about 100,000 of them are, really, really big. And there's only 4,000, maybe 5,000 agencies that are on the Klaviyo chat. If all of them take about like 10, that's 40,000. If they take 20, that's probably when you're meeting. But like realistically, it's very hard to have 20 clients. So I'm very comfortable and confident there's enough business for everyone. When it came to like, you kind of like replicated, you said that, you saw like the gut feeling, the market fit, obviously. But what's really cool about you jumping on this is that you actually 3x, 4x like what you were like in a business in a month, while you were trying actually to scale the other one, just because of like the market sentiment was there. And also the skills. It's a combination of let's try me. Like you took it on as a competition and you executed really quickly, which is actually, I think I was watching an Alex Hormozy video, which at this point he's kind of like the business Jesus, like over the last 1 year. And he basically said that the majority of people failing at business are the ones that are not taking an action. So you just like basically had the skills and you did it immediately. And I think that's what really differentiates like you guys and also like other people as action takers who are winning. So what was that process like in terms of like specific challenges? Like what did you bump into? You said like people were copying you, but like how did you sort of like, tackle through that? Like that business is way above. I think we can share it. It's a 7-figure on its way to. I would say like probably this year it could be scaled to 8, probably even sooner. So what were some of like the bumps on the road and how did you tackle them?
The biggest core thing I've learned this year is we can do marketing, but there's a whole another iceberg, which is product. And product is like, if marketing is, and you can get deep into marketing, like, you can write copy from the body, you can, talk with gods and get, inspiration of how to write copy and do the marketing side. But if the product is trash, no good marketing is going to help with the product. And then we realized that pretty early on, like having good product, having good support, having it all work in unison, that's how companies are made. So for us this year, it was a big realization that, we can build a landing page in a couple of days, but the product will suffer and the product will be pretty mediocre and it'll be easy to copy. So then the question is, how do we build a company that has a great product that people are using every day, that has a good, churn rate and good usability? And that's another different animal. So the biggest challenge right now is how do we, where do we start? Do we start from the marketing? Do we start from the product? How do we make it all work in unison? How do we, make sure that the market needs are met? Because I worked on startups that have raised like $5 million and have built a product and spent like 2 or 3 million, but nobody wants the product because there's no market fit or the market has moved on. So how do you execute quickly enough on the product, which product development cycles take up way longer time than marketing? Because in marketing, if we can build a landing page in a day, you probably can build a product in a day, but it's just, the scales are different. So how do you manage it all and how do you manage all the complexities? That's the big issue right now, because I don't feel like our brand has been executing that well in terms of the product. And that's a big issue for us long term.
Alex, any thoughts from your side?
I would say I would definitely second what Chris said. I think from the performance side, the only thing was you could say the limitations in the product, but that's not a marketing thing. I think it's competitors copying us, I guess, because we constantly had to innovate. We had to be on our toes. We knew that the competition, we just launched, our best performing, and people would duplicate that. And if we, like Chris said, we were at the forefront, we were usually the one that had the most ads running. We had to constantly think of new concepts, new funnels, try, let's say we had a product that was in a Notion platform, like the competition. Then we moved it into a web platform, web app, which looked, more sleek from the marketing side and just looked more professional. I would think it's just to constantly be innovating in terms of ads and funnels. I think that was the challenge.
I think what you mentioned earlier stood out with when you said people are copying us, so we took it on and said keep it going. I don't want to say, but it's probably gonna be the same with product. I feel my gut feel. I'm not a product expert really. I'm also doing a lot more on the marketing side, but I feel with product, the problem with product is not so much that you're developing skills as you're building a product, but you also need to develop your team skills and put that, what Chris was mentioning with the unison of a full scope team feeding information into each other. So like how customers are responding, what are they needing, what are the questions, and just feeding that into this, and then like training your team. I think that's where with product, it's something that like it's basically like the next beast, the next sort of like boss level. Like how do we sort of like beat that? And it will be interesting to see like in terms of product, because you've had a couple of like really successful products. Like obviously the offer went really, really well with them, and you're seeing that market kind of like going. So you've already beaten that in a way, and I'm curious to see how you would replicate that process with like the next one. So if you were, let's say that just thinking of it today, you don't want to add something, Chris?
Yeah, I feel like you mentioned that people can replicate the product. That's true, but what's harder to replicate is the humans behind who built that product and the process behind building the product. Like people can replicate and duplicate our ads, but they can't duplicate Alex, or they can't duplicate, the creative team that built the creatives. So it's just a question of, I feel like with product, I realized this yesterday actually, is that the reason why a lot of the YC, like Silicon Valley startup companies, tell you to talk with the users and just get feedback and iterate, because I feel like the product isn't, you build a product and that's it. You have the product, then you sell the product. I feel like the product is a constantly switching and ever-changing, iterating thing, which 1 week, or if your product cycle is in weeks or 2 weeks, it's constantly changing every single week. So then the question is, how fast can you iterate based on the feedback, and how quickly can you move? Because in terms of startups, especially that are ones that are not based on like, e-com is a little bit different than startups, because e-com works more in, I feel like, EBITDA, or, valuation is also important in the e-com, but I feel like the SaaS model is way different just because you have recurring revenue and the value is generated by subscription. So you're in a constant game of burning cash and growing as fast as possible. So you're in a race against time. And the question is, how do you have a team that can keep great momentum, that can have great processes and ship both product and marketing quickly and do it in unison? Because the name of the game, I feel like, Tryon, like you mentioned, is probably speed. Like how quickly can you execute and how quickly can you ship? And you can't really duplicate that because it's constantly ever changing and ever evolving. So if you have good processes like that in place, I feel like that's what we should focus on. How do we get great people on board? How do we align them on a mission? And then how do we build a process so that way they can work fast? And I feel like that all starts with the purpose and the why. And I don't feel like we have had that actually, just because the business started off as an accident, as a fluke. So that's the main issue right now, I feel like.
So a couple of questions follow up. So the first one is, in terms of getting great people, do you think that you've nailed the good process? I was hiring earlier this year for a copywriter, and I had 4 stages, and it's the first time that I went through so many stages, and still it wasn't like the best, but it was better than that. So do you have something like that to evaluate people? And then second question is, with the why, with the sort of like mission vision, if you don't want to go there, like that's fine as well, but how, like, are you have like a new sort of like figuring out or like process of changing it? Because businesses can change their why, when you're expanding your offering, when the market is moving. So those are my couple of questions.
No, I have no clue. I mean, I have some inkling as to how that could be, but I feel like that's a personal process of finding the why and aligning people against the why, and then just picking the right people. I guess it really depends. Just I feel the question is, how do you find people that together work faster than separately, and how do you make sure that the momentum is there and the energy is there in the room? But I don't know. I don't have a process for that yet. I feel like it's more of a
just recruit your other high school friends who
yeah, that's the strategy.
Just the process.
Yeah,
just check out what they are in life.
Yeah.
Do you want to slightly like one actually question that came to mind as well is, but when you were, so you built like a few businesses already, and you've worked on quite a few businesses, like with the current one, it's kind of like, it's more SaaS than e-com. It's e-com SaaS, but it's kind of like digital products mostly. What are you seeing that is different and more challenging, and would you have sort of like replicated that or would you have been like, if you were to choose like in 2024, like beginning of 2024 a business, would you go through that route?
Through building a digital product on ecom and doing one-time sales versus subscription?
I would say so. Ecom, I think if we were to just like do a quick recap, started mostly with maybe some drop shipping back in 2016, 17, 18, and it has like slightly changed and moved to more high end and more, like right now with some digital products. So sort of like based on your gut, in a way, feeling of 2024, like would you have like done it again if you were to start today, that business? And are you seeing like overlaps of the previous businesses, or like the industry is moving in an entirely different direction?
I feel like Alex already has an answer of how he would approach it, but for me, I feel like because this question is sort of more of a if I was the viewer and to answer to the viewer, I feel like depending on your skill set, you should go for the business that makes you excited and is sort of where you feel like that's a good business model, because different skill sets require different sort of, both risk tolerance levels and both different skill sets. So according to your skill set, I would pursue the path or the business model that, in this current moment in time feels right for you. And then fuck what everyone else does, just get all the input and get all the data. But it's just, every human is different. And for you, Trajan, it might be an agency or it might be a digital product. For Alex, it might be a SaaS company. For me, it might be a different business entirely. It might be like co-working spaces. It's like the business model. I don't feel like that's the approach we should take. Maybe it's what we really care about and what business model can work based on what we care about and what we want to do in this life.
Yeah.
And then the business model will work based on what we want.
Yeah. I think all business models have their advantages or disadvantages. Like, whether you do e-commerce versus info products, like people say, oh, you do info products, like it's, you don't have any, cogs. But the thing is, like, they're also harder to sell, like info products usually, and they're less sustainable. So I think it's everywhere is a different game. You just choose the one that you want to play, you gather experience, and you try to become the best at that one. So I think I agree with Chris. I think all business models work. Just the one that you choose and commit to.
Alex, do you want to touch quickly on what we've discussed in terms of like new businesses, or should we leave that for like another time?
I mean, sure. I guess we can try. I don't know what what I can answer and what I can teach people about. I'm still learning.
So you're right now in the process of like also trying to do a business as well. You've been in the game for a while, so you've seen it all pretty much. You've seen ups and downs, different strategies. So how did you decide to pursue it right now, and why now, and why like the industry sort of that you're approaching?
To be honest, I think it was a long time coming. I've been in the agency game for I think 4 years, and we worked on quite a few brands. I think we did quite good case studies. Like I've seen different things that would scale a brand, like how to achieve these numbers, and that gave me the confidence that I can do it myself. And I just needed to find the product. Like I could handle the marketing if I find the right product. So I think I just wasn't ready for it before. I wasn't looking for products. I just had that idea in mind until one day, I don't know, I just started looking for ideas. I just started to, like Chris says, consume content and try to put dots together. And right now I'm trying a few new products. One of them is digital, the other is physical. Since I have experience in both, I just try to, right now, you could say, test which path I like better. I just do like products that I feel would be cool for me and that I would see long term. Because I have tried products before that, you can launch in a day, like it's going to be a quick drop shipping. But I had some you could say, success from in terms of profit from them, but I could never do it long term. So right now I'm trying two products that I want to do in the long term, and I'm investing more time. I would say like I'm building the whole journey in more detail. Like I put more effort into it. I put more love into it, and but so far I wouldn't say I have success here. I think but I would say I'm committed to make it successful. Like I'm still being positive about it. So yeah.
I think that also is a huge part of like going through them, because you constantly get into some challenges like on the way. And
yeah,
I like that approach of like what we discussed there. I like just keep it coming, like keep them coming too.
Yeah.
Sort of like show what we got.
I don't know if it's the same for you guys. Yeah, like I don't know if it's the same for you guys. Like when you work in so many businesses, you've seen like some businesses that are completely unprofitable, like are struggling. You know, let's say they're dying. Then like one idea, one flip changes, and they become like overnight successes. You know, just because they keep trying, they keep adjusting, like, they keep testing new products and marketing angles. And I think that, you know, once you understand that approach, it gives you optimism. Like, okay, if I believe in the product, then it can be done. You know, it's just like any industry, it just requires work and dedication and thought.
Yeah, it is the same. Like I don't know, Chris, like if you want to touch on this, I would just like go say quickly first, because I've seen when you're an agency, you have maybe 5 to 10 projects. Like typically most agencies even have like maybe less, depending on how big they are. So some have like a lot of projects, but like typically every project is a huge chunk of your revenue. And, you know, sometimes that could be like you could grow 3x in 1 month and then go down 2x in just a month, just because of like a couple of like 2 to 3 accounts have dropped or like came on board. And it's a huge, because you're looking into the numbers, it could be quite emotional. And you often need to remember that everything is a business and there's a lot of numbers and you want to make it always a win-win, or at least as much as you can. Because you have like team to take care of and like business sort of like needs. So it could be very emotional and dynamic. And I heard this, I think from Cody Sanchez last week, that when you are motivated, you have kind of like zero discipline at the time and biggest sort of like level of motivation. And gradually with time, you get less and less motivation, but you get more and more discipline. And as you get with time, you sort of rely mostly on the discipline because that has given you the positive feedback in the past. And I think that's beautiful because you don't rely just on being motivated. Because when you start with the gym, for example, I've been, I don't know, like going on for a while, for a few years, but I kept on like stopping it. Every time I actually start going, it's at one point the discipline, like it's part of my daily schedule. But around the Christmas holidays, typically you will stop, you see friends, you see family, and you lose the discipline element. And then suddenly you need that boost of motivation to drag yourself there. And I think it's the same in business, because if you just stop for a bit, it's way harder to continue. Whereas like if you're continuing on an ongoing basis, you're seeing challenges, but you're so used to seeing those challenges, to seeing that business going up and down. And you know, like the products or like the team, I think that's how I've been approaching it, and just trying to rely a lot more on discipline, especially for like 2024.
What keeps you going, Trojan? Why have discipline? What's the why?
Oh, because this is a little bit personal, but I had like, I love my father and mother and family, but other than my dad, most of my family is very kind people, but with not that much of a business motivation. So I grew up without like much resources, and I always wanted more. So my dad was the only one who could kind of like give me some resources, as in like money, and then I would see kids at school and like traveling that they were having a very, like the latest clothes, the latest technology, whatever. Whereas I was kind of like having like I was never lacked of anything, but he was very controlling in the way of allocating me any money, and it was very strategic. Like I would have to almost negotiate to get some money. So I started working really early as well, but I didn't have your friends group. If I had it, maybe I would have been in business much earlier. But I started doing what I can. At the time was dancing, so I started doing performance dancing and went to uni to study business. Didn't get almost anything, but I was working, waiting tables, doing student ambassadoring to like potential students, giving leaflets on the streets, and I always just wanted to have some of that. And now that I've had some success, not the same level as it was like a big ecom, but I've had like some, like our team has grown. It was that challenge. So what do you do now? Because now I have some money, and I don't like my needs are covered. I have a accommodation, I have food, I have pretty much everything again. So the challenge came when you have them. What now? And to me now, it's sort of like the impact that I can do to people. So how many people can I reach with sort of like the beliefs that I have, which are typically, I believe, more positive, which comes to kind of like kindness and, more altruistic sort of like things in Bulgaria, in like kind of like across like young people, because I didn't really have that when I was younger. And I don't know what it's like in Lithuania, but like in Bulgaria, there's still a lot of sort of like cultural change that has to happen. But I think also globally, we are in our own bubble of business, but like not all people are kind of like taking care of their lives, and that is a ripple effect of like a domino of people not like taking care of themselves or the people that they love, which causes a lot of other friction with people being unhappy, doing bad things. So I feel like just by being a positive examples in the world, I'm kind of hoping that is inspiring a lot of people just by being and by doing those values. So that is sort of like my biggest why, being that type of force in the world to as much as I can. And obviously like taking care of the team, taking care of the people that I love. But I feel like because I've sort of like walked that path, I'm almost obliged to share as much as I can and make and do my good and expect nothing in return. Just keep on giving. Very long answer, but like that's my current why.
That's
I'll figure it out like later.
Very wholesome. Very
that's
wholesome.
Very good. Yeah. Nice.
Do you guys want to touch on that as well? I think that's a good answer. Good question to kind of like wrap up.
I don't want to be embarrassed by, after this. It's hard to keep up. Maybe you, Chris, you want to...
I don't think there's anything embarrassing.
Yeah, I feel like all answers are okay.
That's a good question. Let me think. I think for me, I wouldn't say it's similar to yours. I would say a simple way to put it. For me, it's like a game. My why is to, I don't know, for me, building and working on businesses is just like a fun game. I just like it's like an activity or like a hobby. It's just fun to, it's also, you could say that what I learned working with Chris as well, it's also somewhat of an art as well. If you make it an art, if you, for example, don't use templates, of like, okay, I should do it like this, and then people will convert. If you're more like, okay, like what can I create? What kind of journey I can create, for people to go on? I think it can also be an art. So for me, I would say this is more like a fun game to be in. That is why I do business. It's just fun.
That's a good answer.
And
I think with marketing, no, you can. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I was just gonna finish it. I always played games, like ever since I was young. Like I always played tennis. I always played, let's say, PS4. I always played like these games, and I got really into them, addicted. Like if I went into tennis, like I played professionally, I played a lot. Let's say, if I played PS4, then I played. Like I was into it, and I think it's just another form of that. That's it. My job.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think that's cool because like you touched on two main things, and we'll get to Chris just in a moment. But like the first thing is, what is the customer journey that you're taking people? So you're doing it in reverse, and you're putting up a really nice benefit at the end. So you're almost starting with the end user, what is sort of like their transformed state, and then you're doing it in reverse. So you're not doing it with sort of like a manipulation or like money making mindset, but you're starting with what is going to be like the end result for this user, and how do you take them on a journey that is exciting and, you know, for them. So that is from like marketing standpoint. It is an art. I think like marketing campaigns, they're not going to go in galleries, but some of them going to go on billboards someday, or, you know, like on the big screen. So like in front of thousands of people on Facebook. And in a way, because you're seeing that positive engagement, you know that you're impacting people's lives, which is what marketing is intended for. And then the gaming part is really cool, because I think with business, you have to be competitive and try to make the most of it. It's a game. Like I see it as a game as well. I spent an absurd amount of time on League of Legends as a young child, and Counter-Strike and Dota, too many games. So
Yeah.
it's
You
so
learn a
fun
lot
to
from
actually
them, I
do
would
that
say.
in business when it's, you have to work in teams.
Yeah.
So it's the game of the old ones.
Chris,
And Chris,
Tell
for
us.
you, are you ready for the big question?
For me, it's just to help people, sort of probably same as you, Trajan. So I don't really care about what's the way to do that. I'm still figuring it out as I go along in my journey. But it's just, how can I help the most amount of people while I'm here? Because just like, you know, everyone on this call, I'll die someday. And, you know, what will I leave behind? Will it be flowers in gardens, or will it be rocks in gardens? So while I'm here, I want to plant as many flowers as possible. So that's my why.
And the thing is, it gets lonely, right? Like at one point, the more you sort of like grow in business and in life, the less people there are to communicate with, like with the communities. And it even maybe like distracts you from like some of the people that you know. So by actually helping a lot of people, you're opening up the conversation of like, how do you take care of this, and how do you get excited about this, and how do you learn this, and how do you acquire that skill, and how do you plan your... It's just so exciting to see people who see life positively, because much like when you were in the garage, you know, like the few of you like working together, you are essentially doing that. You are helping each other grow. And now we do it on a scale.
True.
So I feel like that's really cool.
That's very well said.
Okay, well, I think I'll wrap this. Do you guys want to say anything to anyone watching this, thinking about business, doing e-coms, doing something differently, as a kind of like end of almost like an hour of talking?
It's
Do
gonna
cool
sound
shit.
weird, but
And
okay, that's
Build
one of the
something
things. Yeah, for me was follow your heart. That's
good
it.
one. Yeah, I
That's
would say
cool.
so as well.
And Chris, you said like build something.
Build something people want.
I would say become someone who is good for other people as well, as a kind of like in between the what the two of you saying. So follow what you're meant to be, but like also good for like others. So with the three of those, like that is the three to dos on the 2024's people agenda.
Yes.
Thank you
Some
both.
good
It
lessons.
was huge pleasure. I think it was a really good talk. Very little really like planned, but I feel like we went in many directions, and I'm excited to see what people would say.
That was
about
pretty
this.
cool.
Nice. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks for being here.
Good luck and see you soon.
See you soon.